In sunny Florida, from behind the palms, a monster unleashes appalling violence.
What they found, grown men got physically sick.
When detectives probe further, they enter a depraved killer's twisted mind.
I never thought that I would be that close to someone who was capable of doing those things.
And most shocking of all, he's one of their own.
He's one of the most extreme cases of the modern serial killer that we have ever known in criminal history.
Martin County, Florida. The Sunshine State's hidden gem is blessed with miles of beautiful beaches lapped by crystal clear waters.
Those of us that live here call it paradise because it's laid back. It's summer, 12 months out of the year. So you can just come here and be yourself.
In the 1970s, young Americans flock here to soak up the sun and enjoy its relaxed atmosphere.
Young people would come here simply because it was an oasis for them.
The mix of fun-loving tourists and law-abiding locals makes for a peaceful life.
Compared to many other places in Florida, it was fairly calm and quiet. We didn't have rampant crime, so it was a good place to be a law enforcement officer.
One man sworn to serve and protect the people of Martin County is Sheriff's Deputy Gerard John Schaefer. He's a recently married 26-year-old college graduate and one of the sheriff's most promising new recruits.
We were looking for educated young law enforcement officers who could get along well with the public, and Schaefer made a pretty good appearance. He looked passable in the uniform.
A trained cop, Schaefer transferred from nearby Wilton Manors PD, with glowing references following a drugs bust.
He had a letter of recommendation from his previous chief praising him for some work he had done. So we did hope that he would fit well and work well.
And there's one more thing that makes Schaefer an ideal candidate. He's a local boy with intimate knowledge of Martin County's wild countryside.
This area at that time period was very remote, but Schaefer knew the area. It seemed reasonable to hire this well-respected young man to become a deputy sheriff.
With intelligent young deputies patrolling the area, Martin County's reputation as a small piece of paradise looks assured. But in the summer of 1972, shocking news shatters its tranquility. July 22nd. Sheriff Crowder receives a phone call. It's from his new recruit, Deputy Schaefer.
I'm sorry, boss.
And he sounds worried.
Yeah, I've done something foolish.
He told me, basically, he says, "You're really going to be mad at me. I've really messed up. I've done something very stupid."
Schaefer tells his chief he'd wanted to teach two female hitchhikers about the dangers of accepting lifts with strangers. But in trying to do the right thing, he's overstepped the mark.
I was trying to teach them a lesson.
He told me he took the girls into the woods and tied them up. He left them there so that they would feel some fear. I've never had anyone call me and tell me things like that before.
Schaefer says when he went back to check on the hitchhikers, they'd disappeared. He's in big trouble, and he knows it. Crowder orders Schaefer straight back to the sheriff's department and heads out to search for the girls. Nothing prepares him for what he's about to discover. Out on Hutchinson Island, Crowder finds the girls running for their lives. They are terrified.
When I got out to that area, they were almost hysterical. I just cannot help but believe they actually feared that they were about to die.
Oh my God!
Deputy Schaefer's claim he was only trying to scare the girls is clearly not the full story.
Right now.
It was certainly much more sinister than the little rendition that Schaefer had given me over the telephone.
The girls are two friends on holiday, 17-year-old Nancy Trotter and 18-year-old Paula Wells. They explain that the day before they were hitching a ride to the beach when they encountered Deputy Schaefer.
No, I know there's a lot of creeps around here. You gotta be careful. You're lucky that,
The cop warned them taking lifts from strangers is dangerous.
I'll pick you up.
To keep them safe, he offered to drive them to the coast himself the next day.
These two girls trusted a man in uniform. He's charming, he's charismatic, and they know nobody in this town. So they agree.
But Nancy and Paula's safety was the last thing on Schaefer's mind. The girls tell investigators that the following day the deputy turns up as promised. But he's driving a civilian vehicle and is not in uniform. Schaefer explains he's working undercover.
It's special observations. Nothing to worry about. Just get in the back, yeah?
Reassured, Nancy and Paula get into his car.
You all set?
They don't head to the beach as promised. Instead, Schaefer drives them to a remote part of Hutchinson Island, where he subjects them to a terrifying nightmare. He slaps handcuffs on the girls
Right now. Eyes forward, go straight ahead.
and forces them into the dense undergrowth to a spot he has specially prepared.
After he tied their hands, he tied a noose around their necks and tied that to the limbs of the tree.
Schaefer forces Nancy and Paula to balance on the mangrove tree's slippery roots. One misstep and they'll die.
If one of those girls had tripped and fallen off the way he had them perched on these roots, she could very easily have been killed.
While the girls' lives hang in the balance, Schaefer torments and molests them. Then, suddenly he departs, leaving the hitchhikers balancing on the roots. Before he goes, he tells the pair what will happen to them when he returns.
Schaefer told the girls that he would be back later to finish the job. And he told the girls that one of them would die. They just had to decide which one.
Incredibly, Nancy and Paula managed to wriggle free of the nooses. They run for their lives.
Had these two girls not been made of strong stuff, they would not have lived to tell the story, and Schaefer would have never been caught.
Sheriff Crowder immediately fires his deputy and arrests him for abduction and aggravated assault. Schaefer is released on bail, his trial date set for 4 months' time. How could the promising deputy have done something so twisted?
I never thought that in my career I would be that close to someone who was capable of doing those things that are pretty shocking and naturally very serious. I was certainly upset with him. I mean, how could you not be?
November 1972. Schaefer stands trial for the imprisonment and assault of Nancy and Paula. Despite the severity of the crime, he's allowed to strike a deal, pleading guilty for a shorter sentence.
As serious as the charges against Schaefer were, they were not serious enough, just the kidnapping and assault, to prevent him from participating in a plea bargain.
Schaefer's negotiations succeed. He'll spend just 6 months in the county jail.
My feeling was that he got off lighter than he should have, but we had to make the best of how our system works.
And he asks for one more concession. A bail extension, so he can relocate his wife to his mother's house in Fort Lauderdale.
Because he was a cop, and because Schaefer had no record, he was blemish-free, the judge said, take care of business and show up in January to serve your sentence.
In total, Schaefer has 6 months of freedom before going to jail. But the judge has no idea he's given the former deputy a perfect window of opportunity to satisfy the darkest urges of his twisted mind and commit the most depraved acts of violence.